In her retirement message to YouTubers, which is confusing because YouTubers are people who make videos on YouTube, not people who work for YouTube. She states that her reason is to focus more on her family, health, and personal projects. She will apparently continue to work with YouTube in some capacity through the transition, as well as she will continue to advise Google CEO Sundar Pichai in the long term. Her successor is her longtime second-in-command, Neal Mohan, who I have met. I have never actually met Susan. I was joking about being on a first-name basis with her, but I have met Neal, whose background in advertising and close working relationship with Susan since 2015 likely indicates a decision on the part of YouTube to continue her policies and management style. In her role as CEO, Susan is primarily known for making YouTube more accessible to advertisers and trying to manage both outside demands for moderation of potentially offensive content and increased regulation. So our discussion questions are, I'd say, pretty bite-sized.
Yeah.
You know, pretty simple.
Yeah.
Given everything that's happened with YouTube in the last decade, was her tenure a success?
I think it would be really difficult to argue that it wasn't. YouTube is the most successful social media platform as far as my opinion on it would go.
So, it's complicated.
Yeah.
TikTok, I think, is actually outpacing YouTube for watch time. But as far as I can tell, we're counting on ByteDance's numbers in order to determine that.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I don't believe a word ByteDance says. I'm not going to take anything they say at face value, whereas Google is a very analytics-driven company. Have they ever bent the truth? But do they just BS around when it comes to analytics data? Well, they've certainly never been caught the way that Facebook was on video.
Oh, yeah. That was rough.
So they've still pretty much got my trust as far as that goes.
Oh, you scrolled past a video and played 0.5 seconds of it? Sounds like a view to me.
Yeah, exactly.
It depends on how you determine success. One of the ways that I would is look at like us, right? Look at people that have been able to make long-standing careers or long-standing companies based around the platform.
Now that's a stronger argument because, I don't think that something as simple as watch time is, equals success.
It's definitely a valuable metric.
But one of the things that, and I've talked about this even in the last couple of weeks, one of the things that YouTube has done well is built a thriving ecosystem for their downstream partners.
When other platforms die, the creators on those platforms come to YouTube. When other platforms have a creator that get really big, one of the ways that those creators start to monetize themselves more effectively,
take it to the next level,
is they come to YouTube.
So I would say that if we look at her tenure, which is, man, that goes back to. Was she at YouTube when they launched like creator rewards and like play buttons and all that kind of stuff? I'm pretty sure
she's been around in some capacity like the actual whole time, but I don't know if she was the CEO back then. I'm not certain.
Yeah.
I think she's been around because it was like started in her parents' garage, but not technically with her, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so she rented her parents' garage to Sergey Brin and Larry Page.
Yeah.
Just
so she's like been around.
Wild.
Yeah.
But I don't think that she worked at YouTube.
I don't think so.
Before Google acquired YouTube. So she's been there very early on.
I conflated those stories a little bit.
So YouTube was independent for a short period of time before it was acquired by Google because there was no way it was going to survive.
The story mix-up that I had was I thought the garage was for YouTube.
No.
Google. Got it.
I think that without getting too deep into some of the things that have gone wrong, YouTube has overall been a success.
Oh, there's been missteps. I guarantee you, under anyone, there would have been some amount of missteps. There's been missteps that have been incredibly frustrating, like the dislike button was really frustrating.
Yeah.
How certain things have been handled at different times have been really frustrating. But the bottom line is,
it's successful.
Yeah.
I mean, the dislike button is just part of a larger move towards obfuscation of analytics from the users of the platform.
Which is like not good.
And that's something that, honestly, I just don't even know if I would blame Susan for directly. I think that's just something that is happening more broadly at Google. I hate it. It used to be that you went onto a channel page and you could actually, DM another follower of the channel, okay, from a privacy standpoint or like a spam standpoint.
Bit of an issue.
Obviously there are problems with this, but like, I don't see any reason why we had to, for example, cut off Social Blade's access to the API if they store data past 2 years. Like being able to see the entire history of a channel's growth and fall or whatever else is really useful for the creator community.
Yeah.
And why? Why? Like if I had had the foresight to just track it myself, I could have. This was just a convenient way of getting access to it, but you're just basically saying, no, convenience. No, trust us. The removal of dislikes is not to avoid corporate channel problems. It's much dumber. That would, if they had come out and basically said our advertising partners don't like dislikes on their videos, I'd have been like, I get it. Like, that sucks, but I get it. But no, it actually is what they said. It's actually that dumb. Yeah, sorry. All right. What would you have done differently, though, is our next question. What would you do differently, or what would you like to see change moving forward? I think more transparency would be a good thing. Maybe it's not good from like a shareholder relation standpoint or whatever. Like, how YouTube announced that they were no longer going to be announcing growth in like users, like monthly users or anything like that, just because it wasn't impressive. But even if it's not impressive for your stockholders, doesn't necessarily mean that it's not useful for us to know, like, hey, am I growing, or is just the platform growing overall, or what's going on? More transparency, I think, is never a bad thing. That's something that I would have liked to see. I think that more transparency could also help with a lot of the complaints that certain groups have about the platform. Like, for example, I know that we've gotten messages from some prominent firearms creators over the last little while asking if Floatplane would be a safe haven for their content. And right now, I think the biggest problem they have, and I apologize if I'm putting words in your mouth that you don't agree with, but I think the biggest problem that they have is communication.
Yeah.
They don't even know.
New rules just come out of nowhere, and they're not really sure what they have to do about it. They don't know why they came in.
Retroactively applied to older content, which doesn't make
really old content sometimes.
Which doesn't make any sense to me.
And it's not. They don't. There's usually not any active communication before the rules show up, so that they can understand them before they're there, and so that YouTube can understand what they're doing, because a fairly recent thing that happened to them was like really weird. YouTube stepped back a lot of those rules, but a bunch of these channels literally thought they were all just going to be deleted. Like the whole channel, they thought they're just going to be permanently banned. And then YouTube pulled back the rules. But if they didn't, all these channels would just be gone. And when that's your entire livelihood, that can be...
Well, it's terrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only word for it.
And like when it's just you, it's terrifying.
And it's not like...
When it's you and a company and you have all these employees and stuff, like your thing being deleted off of YouTube isn't just shutting you down, it's potentially shutting down the professional lives of an entire massive group of people.
Well, yeah. And the thing is, like, just because your channel isn't shut down today, just because it worked out this time, doesn't mean that you're not still living in abject terror.
Yeah.
Right? That it could just happen tomorrow. So, I think an increase in transparency around policy is absolutely something that they could do better. I had one that kind of popped into my head that I really wanted to talk about, but now I've forgotten. Yeah, apparently one of the things is you can't show how to attach a suppressor to a firearm. It's a funny thing, like that almost feels like it comes from like a movie watcher's understanding of suppressors. They're not quiet.
Yeah.
Like, okay, so A, they're not illegal in a lot of places.
Yeah.
B, it's not like suppressors are for like becoming like a ninja, like silent, deadly assassin, like
mostly so you don't like blow your ears out.
Like they're freaking loud still. It's a gun.
You can get them to be pretty quiet if you also use like subsonic ammunition and like all this other kind of stuff, but like it's not, most of them are still, you're gonna know what's going on. So yeah, I don't know. Like one of the things that happened recently, I don't know if we're gonna talk about this for way too long, but one of the things that happened recently was I hope I don't misquote this. I might. I believe it was a magazine of a capacity of 30 or more.
Mm-hmm.
You were not allowed to show it being inserted to a firearm on camera because it was seen as weapon modification. But for a very large amount of weapons, that is a standard magazine.
Right. Like,
or firearms, whatever.
sure, like a chain gun. So what, you'd have to have a really short chain?
An M4.
No, I know what you mean. I just mean like, it's not like there aren't YouTube videos of people like.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Yeah.
So what? You're just supposed to like. Yeah, this is the chain.
People were, and like it was unclear because it didn't, if I remember correctly, it didn't say anything about firing a firearm that had a 30-round magazine in it. It just said you couldn't insert it. So people were like they would show them the magazine coming close to the firearm, and then right before the insertion it would just blur that area, and then it would click in, and then they would just use it normally, and they were like, this might actually be okay, we don't know. That was funny. I don't know. But like, yeah. It's been weird. But anyways, back to CEO stuff.
I think so let me make a counter argument to my own point now. When it comes to things like, obvious conspiracy theories, whether we're talking about like moon landing conspiracy theories or flat Earth, right? Like one of the things that YouTube has done in recent times is they have suppressed.
Add the little thing.
Yeah. So, okay, they've done that too. But one of the things they did before that was they suppressed information from non-credible sources. And on the one hand, while I think that we should see perfect transparency, in a perfect world, we would have perfect transparency about what exactly it is that they are doing algorithmically with respect to suppressing, non-trustworthy sources of information, like people who propagate flat Earth conspiracy theories or whatever the case may be. But the problem with that is that if they say, hey, here's what we're blocking and or demoting, and here's how we're doing it, they pretty much open up the floodgates for abusers to come in and go, how can I just barely work around this enough that my content still gets out there? And it could be very damaging. It could be very harmful.
At scale, absolutely, every single rule or system will be abused. Every single one. Like it's not a potential, it's a guarantee. Yeah. So you have to be a little bit careful about your transparency there, which sucks.
Yeah, it's stupid
for everyone that like wants to do things properly.